The little sparrow that sang after the storm. Beyond the hills where wild winds flew, where morning skies were white and blue, a little sparrow built its nest within an old oak's quiet rest. It was a tiny bird so small with gentle wings and feathers soft. Each morning when the sun appeared, the little sparrow sang so clear. Its song was light, its song was sweet. It danced like rain on summer leaves. The forest loved its morning tune. The flowers opened beneath the sun, the river sparkled as it flowed, and every little creature seemed to wake whenever the sparrow sang. But one evening, far away, a dark cloud gathered in the sky. The wind began to whistle low, the trees began to bend and sway. The little sparrow looked around. What is happening? It whispered. The old oak answered with a sigh, a storm is coming. The sparrow quickly flew toward its nest. Inside were three tiny eggs. It wrapped its wing around them. I will keep them safe. The sky grew darker. Thunder rolled across the hills. Rain began to fall. Then the storm arrived. The wind shook every branch. The little nest moved high above the ground. The sparrow held tightly. I am afraid, it whispered, but it did not fly away. It stayed all through the long dark night. Rain struck the leaves, thunder filled the sky, lightning flashed across the clouds. The little sparrow closed its eyes and listened to the storm. It remembered peaceful mornings, it remembered flowers, it remembered sunshine, it remembered its song. I will sing again, it whispered. Not tonight, but someday. The storm continued, the oak tree creaked, branches fell around the forest, the river became wild and fast, the flowers bent beneath the rain, everything seemed frightened. But the little sparrow remained, it kept its wings around the eggs, waited, hours passed, then slowly the storm became quieter. The thunder moved farther away, the wind softened, the rain became gentle, and finally silence. The little sparrow opened its eyes. The sky was beginning to change. A pale light appeared beyond the hills. Morning. The sparrow looked around. Many branches had fallen. Leaves covered the ground. The flowers were wet and tired. The river was still rushing. The forest looked different, but the little sparrow was safe, and so were the eggs. It whispered, we made it. The sun rose. Golden light touched the trees. A few birds began to sing, but the little sparrow could not sing. Its voice felt tired. It tried once. Nothing came. It tried again. Only a tiny sound escaped. The sparrow looked down sadly. Perhaps the storm took my song. The old oak whispered, no, your song is still inside you. It only needs time to return. The sparrow rested. The forest slowly began to heal. The flowers lifted their heads. The river became calm. Sunlight warmed the wet leaves. Little animals came from their hiding places. A rabbit hopped carefully across the grass. A fox walked beneath the trees. Butterflies returned to the garden. Life was beginning again, but the sparrow remained quiet. Each morning it opened its beak and tried to sing. Sometimes only a whisper came, sometimes nothing came at all. Still it tried. One morning a young bird came to the oak. Why don't you sing anymore? The young bird asked. The sparrow looked at the sky. He used to sing every morning. Then the storm came afterward. I forgot how. The young bird tilted its head. Maybe you didn't forget. Maybe your song changed. The sparrow thought about that. Could a song change? Listen to the forest. The river had changed its voice. The wind sounded different. The leaves moved more gently. Even the flowers seemed quieter. The sparrow took a breath, then it sang one tiny note. Soft, shaky, but beautiful. The young bird smiled again. The sparrow sang another note, then another. Soon the notes became a melody, not the same song as before. Something new, something deeper, something filled with the memory of rain. The forest became quiet to listen. The river slowed, the flowers seemed to open, even the old oak moved gently in the breeze. The sparrow finished its song. For a moment, no one spoke. Then the forest filled with bird song. The little sparrow smiled. Its song had returned, but now it carried something the old song never had. It carried courage, it carried patience, it carried the memory of surviving, and it carried hope. The sparrow looked at the sky. The clouds were white now, soft and peaceful. It whispered, perhaps storms do not always take things away. Perhaps sometimes they teach us how precious those things are. The little sparrow flew above the forest. Its wings felt stronger, its song felt warmer, and beneath the golden morning sun it began singing once again. But this time it sang not because life was perfect. It sang because life had continued. And somewhere beyond the hills another song was gathering, waiting to teach another heart how strong it could become. Beyond the hills, the mountain grew with golden light and skies of blue. The little sparrow spread its wings and filled the forest air with songs. Its voice was different now, somehow more gentle than it had been before. It carried memories of rain, of thunder rolling through the night, of frightened moments in the dark, and hope that waited for the light. The little sparrow flew above the quiet forest it had loved, saw the broken branches there scattered beneath the morning air. Some flowers poured beside the stream, their petals soft with drop of rain. Some trees had lost their leaves and limbs, but tiny buds were growing again. The sparrow looked at everything and understood a simple thing. The forest had not stayed the same, yet somehow it was beautiful. The storm had changed the trees, it had changed the river, it had changed the flowers, and it had changed the little sparrow too. But change did not mean the end, it meant a new beginning. The sparrow returned to its nest, where three small eggs were warm and safe. It settled gently beside them, waiting for the new morning. Days passed. The eggs began to move. Tiny cracks appeared. Then one sunny morning, three little heads appeared. The sparrow's heart filled with joy. Welcome to the world, it whispered. The little birds looked around. They heard the river, they heard the wind, they heard the forest speaking. Then one tiny bird asked, Mother, what is that sound? The sparrow smiled. That is the forest singing. Can I sing too? Of course. Little bird opened its beak. Only a tiny squeak came out. The sparrow laughed softly. That is a beginning. The young birds practice every morning. At first, their songs were uneven. Sometimes they forgot the notes, sometimes they stopped halfway. But the sparrow never became impatient. Try again, it would say. Songs take time. One morning, all three young birds sang together. Their voices were small, their melody was imperfect, but the forest seemed brighter because of it. The sparrow listened proudly. It remembered how it once believed its own song had disappeared forever. Now it understood sometimes what we lost returns in a different form. Sometimes we become stronger without realizing it. And sometimes the broken pieces of an old life become the beginning of something new. Summer arrived. The forest became green again. Flowers filled the meadow. The river moved gently over the stones. Butterflies danced between the trees. The little sparrow and its young birds sang together every morning. Their songs traveled across the hills. People in the nearby village began to hear them. One little girl walked into the forest to find the source of the beautiful sound. She sat beneath the old oak and listened. The sparrows sang above her. She smiled. I loved that song. The sparrow looked down. The girl was carrying a small notebook. She began to write. She wrote about the storm. She wrote about the forest. She wrote about the little sparrow that had turned to sing again. The sparrow watched quietly. It realized that its song was now carrying hope beyond the forest. Its voice had become a message for anyone who had ever been afraid, a message for anyone who had lost something precious, a message for anyone who wondered whether happiness could return after a difficult time. The message was simple: try again. The girl returned to the forest many times that summer. Each time the sparrow sang, each time she wrote, and slowly the girl's notebook filled with stories. She had once been afraid that she had nothing with worth writing. Now she had pages full of words. The sparrow had never spoken to her, yet its song had given her courage. Autumn arrived, leaves turned golden and red. The sparrows prepared for the colder months. Little birds had grown strong. One evening, the oldest young bird looked toward the horizon. I want to fly farther, he whispered. The mother sparrow smiled. I know, but what if I get lost? Then remember the way. What if there is a storm? Then find shelter. What if I become afraid? The sparrow looked at him gently. Then remember that you have survived before. The young bird nodded. He spread his wings and flew. The little sparrow watched him disappear beyond the trees. For a moment, its heart felt heavy, but then it smiled. Growing meant leaving the nest. Love did not mean keeping someone close forever. Sometimes love meant teaching them how to find their own sky. Winter returned, snow covered the forest, the river moved quietly beneath the ice, the old oak stood beneath the white sky, the little sparrow rested in its nest. It remembered the storm from long ago, it remembered being afraid, it remembered thinking its song was gone, and it smiled because the storm had passed, the song had returned, and life had continued. One morning the young bird returned. He had traveled far. He had seen distant valleys. He had crossed mountains. He had flown beneath unfamiliar skies. But he came home. I remembered, he said. The mother sparrow smiled. What did you remember? Your song? The little sparrow's eyes filled with warmth. My song? Yes. Whenever I was afraid, I remembered how you sang after the storm. The mother sparrow looked toward the sky. She finally understood. A song doesn't belong only to the one who sings it. Sometimes a song becomes hope inside someone else's heart. Years passed, the little sparrow grew older. Its wings became slower. Its feathers became softer and gray. But every morning when the sun appeared, it still sang, not loudly, not perfectly, not just gently. The forest listened, the river listened, the flowers listened, and every now and then a young bird would answer. One morning the sparrow sat beneath the old oak and watched the sunrise. The sky became golden, the clouds turned pink, the forest filled with light. The sparrow closed its eyes. It thought about the storm, it thought about the fear, it thought about the silence afterward, and it thought about the first tiny note that returned to its voice. It whispered, I am grateful for the storm. Not because it was easy, but because it taught me how beautiful the morning could be. Then it sang one final song, soft, warm, peaceful, a song about rain, a song about courage, a song about waiting, a song about beginning again. And as the sun rose above the hills, the entire forest seemed to sing with it. The river whispered, the leaves danced, the birds answered, the wind carried the melody away, far beyond the forest, far beyond the hills. Perhaps someone else heard it, someone who was going through their own difficult night, someone who needed to know the storm will pass, your voice will return, and one day you will sing again. So that was a poem. Now, the message of the poem. A difficult season can change us, but it does not have to destroy us. The little sparrow teaches us that after a storm, we may not return to exactly who we were before, and that is okay. Sometimes we become quieter, sometimes we become stronger, sometimes our dreams change, sometimes our happiness returns slowly, and sometimes the things we thought were lost come back in a completely new form. The sparrow believed its song was gone forever, but it wasn't gone. It was simply waiting, waiting for healing, waiting for courage, waiting for a new morning. So if you are going through a difficult season, do not be discouraged by the silence. You may not be ready to sing today. You may need to rest. You may need to heal. You may need time. That does not mean your song is gone. Your dreams may still be inside you. Your hope may still be inside you. Your strength may still be growing quietly. And when time is right, your voice will return. Perhaps it will not sound exactly the same. Perhaps it will be softer. Perhaps it will be deeper. Perhaps it will carry memories that were not there before, but it may also carry something beautiful. Wisdom, courage, compassion, and hope. So remember the little sparrow, when the storm comes, hold on. When you are tired, rest. When you are afraid, breathe. When you cannot sing, simply wait. And when morning comes, try again. Because sometimes the most beautiful song is the one we learn to sing after the storm. If you like the poem, please like, share, comment, and subscribe to the channel for more soft spoken videos. Thank you.